I never imagined my 32nd birthday would be the night my entire world exploded into a million pieces. Giovanni's restaurant sparkled like something out of a fairy tale. Cream roses climbed up every column, golden balloons floated near the ceiling, and soft Italian music played while 50 of our closest friends and family laughed and talked around elegantly set tables. I wore the emerald dress Trevor had surprised me with last week, silk that hugged my body perfectly and made me feel beautiful. My mother said I looked radiant. My father said I looked happy. I was happy. Deliriously, completely happy. Trevor had insisted on this big celebration. "You only turn 32 once," he'd said, kissing my forehead, "and my beautiful wife deserves the world to see how much I love her." He'd invited everyone, my parents, his mother Margaret, all our friends, my business clients, even people from the country club. The party cost a fortune, but Trevor said not to worry about it. "You're worth every penny," he'd whispered. I should have known something was wrong. I should have seen the signs. But I was too busy being grateful, too busy feeling blessed, too busy living in what I thought was my perfect life. Lucy and Amber, my 8-year-old twins, looked adorable in matching lavender dresses. They'd been quiet all evening, which I'd noticed but attributed to being overwhelmed by the crowd. Now I realized they were preparing, planning, carrying the weight of a secret that should never have been on their small shoulders. My father stood up for a toast around 8:30, his wine glass raised high. Richard Wilmington commanded attention wherever he went, successful, powerful, but with a soft heart for his only daughter. "To my Diane," he began, his voice thick with emotion. 32 years ago, you came into this world and made it brighter. You've grown into an extraordinary woman, talented, kind, and wise enough to choose a husband who treats you like the queen you are." Everyone applauded. I felt Trevor's hand squeeze mine under the table. I turned to smile at him, saw him winking at me, and my heart swelled. How lucky was I? "Trevor," my father continued, "thank you for honoring our family legacy. Thank you for being the kind of man who deserves my daughter. Thank you for being a wonderful father to Lucy and Amber. Here's to many more years of happiness." "To Diane and Trevor," the room chorused, glasses clinking. I stood to hug my father, tears in my eyes. This was everything. This moment, this life, this family. It was everything I'd ever wanted. That's when the restaurant doors burst open. The sound was so sudden, so violent that several people screamed. The music stopped. Conversations died mid-sentence. Every head turned toward the entrance. Trevor stood there. But wait. Trevor was sitting next to me. I could feel his hand still holding mine. Except now his hand went rigid, his grip painfully tight for just a second before he released me completely. No. Not Trevor standing next to me. Trevor walking through the door with a woman I'd never seen before. And 2 small children. My brain couldn't process it. Was this some kind of surprise? A performance? It didn't make sense. Nothing made sense. The woman was pretty, younger than me, with long dark hair and a confused, almost frightened expression. She held the hand of a little girl about 6 years old. A small boy, maybe 4, clung to her other side. They all looked terrified. Trevor, my Trevor, the one who'd been sitting beside me seconds ago, stood up slowly. His face had gone completely white. The other Trevor... No, wait. There was only one Trevor. The Trevor from the doorway walked toward us with determined steps. His jaw was set. His eyes were wild. He looked like a man about to jump off a cliff. "What is this?" my mother gasped beside me. "Richard, what's happening?" I couldn't speak. My throat had closed completely. Trevor reached the center of the room. He grabbed the microphone from my father's hand. My father was too shocked to resist. The feedback squealed, making everyone wince. "Everyone, I need your attention," Trevor said into the microphone. His voice shook but carried through the entire restaurant. "I know this seems crazy. I know this looks insane, but I can't live with lies anymore." "Lies? What lies?" He gestured to the woman and children beside him. The little boy was crying now. "This is Vanessa," Trevor said, "and these are our children, Chloe and Noah." The room went completely silent. Not a single person moved. I don't think anyone even breathed. "This is my second family," Trevor continued, his voice getting stronger, almost defiant. "I've hidden them for 8 years." My wine glass slipped from my hand. The crash of crystal shattering against the marble floor seemed impossibly loud. Red wine splashed across my emerald dress, across the white tablecloth, across my mother's shoes. Nobody noticed. 8 years. 8 years. The twins were 8 years old. He'd been with this woman since I was pregnant, before the girls were even born. "You said you were divorced," the woman, Vanessa, suddenly screamed. Her face had gone from frightened to furious in seconds. "You said you told them months ago. You said it was done." I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. This wasn't real. This was a nightmare. I was going to wake up any second. My mother made a horrible sound, somewhere between a gasp and a scream. My father lunged toward Trevor, but Nicole's husband and 2 other men grabbed him, holding him back. "You lying piece of—" my father roared. "Diane, I can explain," Trevor said, turning to look at me finally. "I know this looks bad, but—" "Looks bad?" Margaret, Trevor's own mother, stood up shakily. "Have you lost your mind? What have you done?" People were crying, shouting, pulling out phones to film. Nicole grabbed my arm so tightly it hurt. "Diane, don't listen to him. Don't listen to anything he says." But I couldn't hear anything. There was a rushing sound in my ears like ocean waves. My vision narrowed to a tunnel. I was going to faint, or vomit, or both. Then I saw them, Lucy and Amber, my babies, walking toward their father with slow, deliberate steps. They moved in perfect sync, the way twins sometimes do. Their faces were completely calm. Too calm. Eerily calm for 8-year-old girls watching their father destroy their family. They carried a small box between them, wrapped in silver paper. The entire room watched as they approached Trevor. He looked down at them, confused, his face still white as paper. "This is for you, Dad," Lucy said. Her voice didn't shake at all. "From both of us," Amber added in the exact same tone. They held out the box together. Trevor's hands trembled as he took it. "Girls, this isn't—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "Open it," Lucy said. Trevor tore at the silver wrapping with shaking fingers. The paper fell away. He lifted the lid. His face drained of every last bit of colour. His hands began to tremble so violently that the box fell from his grip, landing on the floor with a thud, papers scattered everywhere, photographs, documents with official-looking seals, bank statements. Trevor's legs gave out. He collapsed into the nearest chair, his head dropping into his hands. And I sat frozen, unable to move, unable to think, unable to understand how my perfect life had just shattered into pieces I would never be able to put back together. 3 months before the birthday dinner, I woke up in paradise. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows of our bedroom. My bedroom, really, in the house that had belonged to my grandmother. The Victorian mansion sat on 3 acres of perfectly maintained grounds in Maplewood Heights, the kind of property people drove past slowly just to admire. Grandmother Eleanor had left it to me when I turned 25, 7 years ago. Every morning I woke up here, I felt her presence, her love, her legacy wrapped around me like a warm blanket. Trevor's arm was draped across my waist. I turned to look at him, still handsome after 10 years of marriage, his dark hair just starting to show grey at the temples. He looked peaceful in sleep, younger somehow. I kissed his shoulder gently, not wanting to wake him, and slipped out of bed. The house was quiet as I padded downstairs in my robe. This had been grandmother's house, but it was truly mine now. Every room held memories. The library where I'd spent countless afternoons reading as a child, the sunroom where grandmother taught me about her gardens, the formal dining room where she'd hosted elegant dinner parties. Trevor always said I was lucky to have such a beautiful inheritance. He said it made him proud to live here, to raise our daughters in a house with so much history. I started coffee in the kitchen and heard little feet thundering down the stairs. Lucy and Amber burst through the doorway, still in their pajamas, hair wild from sleep. "Morning, Mom," they chorused, climbing onto the breakfast bar stools. "Pancakes?" I asked, already pulling out the ingredients. "Yes, please," Amber said, but something in her voice seemed flat. I glanced at her. She was smiling, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "You okay, sweetheart?" "I'm fine, Mom." She exchanged a quick look with Lucy that I couldn't quite read. "Just tired," Lucy added quickly. "We stayed up reading too late." I let it go. 8-year-olds had their moods. I mixed the batter while they whispered to each other, heads bent close together, sisters sharing secrets. It was sweet. Trevor came down 20 minutes later, already dressed in one of his expensive suits. He kissed the top of my head, then both girls. "Morning, beautiful ladies," he said warmly. To me. "Don't forget I'm leaving for that conference in Chicago tomorrow. 4 days this time." "I remember," I said, flipping pancakes. "You'll miss Amber's art show on Thursday." "I know, I'm sorry, sweetheart," he said to Amber, ruffling her hair. "But Daddy's business is really important right now. Big deals happening." Amber stared at him with an odd expression. "What kind of deals, Daddy?" "Boring grown-up stuff. Real estate investments, property acquisitions, that sort of thing." He checked his watch. "I've got to run. Early meeting downtown." After he left, I drove the girls to Riverside Elementary, my mind already on the day ahead. I had 3 client meetings scheduled at my design studio, one of the commercial properties downtown that my father had given me as a wedding gift. The building generated steady rental income from the other tenants, but I kept the best space for my own business. My design firm had grown so much in the past 2 years. I was proud of what I'd built. "Mom?" Lucy's voice from the back seat pulled me from my thoughts. "Yes, honey?" "Do you own our house?" "Like, is it yours?" "Well, it's ours, sweetie. Mine and Daddy's." "Why do you ask?" Another look passed between the twins in the rearview mirror. "Just wondering," Lucy said quietly. "We're learning about property and ownership in social studies. Grandmother left the house to me, yes. But when you're married, you share everything with your husband. That's what love means, trusting someone with everything you have." Lucy didn't respond, just stared out the window with a troubled expression I didn't understand. Sunday brunch at my parents' estate was a weekly tradition. Their home was even larger than mine. My father's success in commercial real estate had built a small empire. We sat around their dining table that could seat 20, just the 6 of us. My parents, Margaret, Trevor, me, and the twins. "I've been meeting with my estate attorney," my father announced over his eggs Benedict. "Updating my will, making sure everything's in order." "Richard, is everything all right?" I asked, suddenly worried. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Just being responsible. I'm not getting any younger." He smiled at me. "I want to make sure you're taken care of. The commercial property portfolio will transfer to you. All 12 buildings downtown. Current value is around $12 million. I nearly choked on my orange juice. "Dad, You're my only child, Diane. Who else would I leave it to?" He turned to Trevor. "I assume you'll help Diane manage the properties? It's a lot of responsibility." Trevor leaned forward, suddenly very interested. "Of course, Richard. I'd be honoured. Have you considered putting them in a trust? What about the transfer timeline and the tax implications? There are strategies we could use to minimise estate taxes." For the next 20 minutes, Trevor peppered my father with detailed questions about the properties, their worth, how the trusts were structured, when everything would transfer to my name. My father, trusting his son-in-law completely, answered every single question. I noticed Lucy watching her father with an intensity that seemed strange for a child. She was memorizing something, storing information away. That afternoon, while Trevor was in his home office with the door closed, I worked in the garden, grandmother's rose garden that I'd maintained exactly as she'd left it. The twins played nearby, or so I thought. Later, I would learn that Lucy had snuck into Trevor's office, that she'd used her tablet to photograph papers on his desk. But I knew none of that then. I just knew my life was beautiful. Tuesday evening, Trevor packed his suitcase for Chicago. 4 days, he said, kissing me goodbye. I'll call every night. Be safe, I told him. Don't forget to actually sleep instead of working the whole time. He laughed. You know me too well. After he left, I helped the twins with their homework. Amber had a math worksheet. Lucy had to write a paragraph about someone she admired. She wrote about grandmother Eleanor. Why did you pick grandmother? I asked, reading over her shoulder. Because she was smart, Lucy said seriously. She never let anyone take advantage of her. She protected what was hers. That's true, I agreed, though the comment seemed oddly specific for an 8-year-old. That night, after tucking them in, I heard whispers from their room. I paused outside the door. Did you get pictures of all the papers? Amber's voice barely audible. Most of them, Lucy whispered back. There's legal stuff about Mom's properties. Big words I don't understand yet. We should look them up on the internet tomorrow. At the library, not at home. Why not at home? Because Dad might check the computer history. We have to be careful. I almost opened the door to ask what they were talking about, but something stopped me. They were probably playing some kind of detective game, kids and their imaginations. I went to my own bedroom, climbed into the empty bed, and fell asleep thinking about how blessed I was. A beautiful home that my grandmother had left me. A successful business in properties my father had gifted me. A husband who loved me. 2 brilliant daughters. I had everything. I had no idea that in 3 months, I would discover I'd almost had nothing. That while I slept peacefully in grandmother's house, my husband was planning to take it from me. That those whispered conversations between my daughters weren't games. They were them trying to save me from losing everything. But that night, I just smiled in the darkness and thought about how perfect my life was. I couldn't have been more wrong. The day Lucy and Amber's world changed forever started out perfectly normal. It was a Saturday 6 months before my birthday dinner. The girls were supposed to go to their friend Hannah's birthday party in Riverside, a town about 20 minutes away. I'd bought a nice present, made sure they looked adorable in their matching sundresses, and kissed them goodbye as Hannah's mother picked them up at 10 in the morning. What I didn't know was that Hannah's mother called me 30 minutes later. I was in the shower and missed it. She left a voicemail saying the party was cancelled. Hannah had come down with the flu. She asked if I wanted her to bring the girls back home or if they could play at the park for a while since they were already in Riverside. I never got that message until much later. My phone was on silent. Lucy would tell me later, months afterward, when everything came crashing down, exactly what happened that day. Hannah's mother had asked if they wanted to come back home. Lucy, always the bolder twin, said they'd like to play at Riverside Park for a bit. Could she please drop them off? Their mum would pick them up in an hour. Hannah's mother, trusting and kind, said yes. She made them promise to stay in the playground area where she could see them from her car for a few minutes. She watched them run to the swings, waved and drove away. The girls had no plan. They just wanted to play, to make the best of their cancelled party. Lucy was on the swings. Amber was climbing the jungle gym. It was a beautiful day, sunny and warm. That's when Amber saw him. "Lucy," she hissed from the top of the jungle gym. "Lucy, isn't that Dad?" Lucy looked where her sister was pointing. Across the park near the picnic tables stood their father. But he wasn't alone. He was with a woman. A pretty woman with long dark hair, wearing jeans and a yellow shirt. She was laughing at something Trevor said. And there were 2 children with them. A little girl about 6 and a smaller boy who looked maybe 4. "Maybe it's for work," Lucy whispered, but her stomach was already twisting into knots. "Maybe that's a client." They watched as Trevor spread a blanket on the grass. The woman sat down and so did the children. It looked like a family picnic. "Clients don't go on picnics," Amber said quietly. They climbed down from the playground equipment and crept closer, hiding behind a big oak tree about 30 feet away, close enough to see, close enough to hear bits of conversation when the wind blew right. The little girl was talking. "Daddy, can we get ice cream after lunch?" Daddy. She called him Daddy. Lucy grabbed Amber's hand so hard it hurt. Neither of them said a word. Trevor laughed, that warm laugh the girls knew so well. "Of course, Princess, whatever you want." The woman leaned over and kissed him. Not a quick peck. A real kiss, the kind their mum and dad shared. When she pulled back, she said something they could hear clearly. "I love our Saturdays together. Just our family." Our family. Amber started to cry silently, tears streaming down her face. Lucy clamped a hand over her sister's mouth to keep any sound from escaping. They couldn't let Dad see them. They couldn't. They watched for 20 more minutes. Watched Trevor help the little boy throw a ball. Watched him hug the woman, that woman who wasn't their mother. Watched him be a father to children who weren't them. Finally, when Trevor and his other family started packing up their picnic, the twins ran. They ran all the way to the park entrance where Hannah's mother had dropped them off. Lucy used the emergency quarters their mom always made them carry to call from a payphone. I answered on the second ring. "Hi, sweetheart. Having fun at the party?" Lucy's voice shook. "Mom, can you please come get us? The party ended early." I heard something wrong in her voice. "Are you okay? What happened?" "Nothing, Mom. We're just ready to come home." I picked them up 15 minutes later. They were quiet the whole drive home, sitting close together in the back seat. I asked several times if something had happened, if someone had been mean to them, but they just said they were tired. That night, after I tucked them in, Lucy lay in her bed staring at the ceiling. Amber whispered from across the room, "Did we really see what I think we saw?" "Yeah," Lucy breathed. "We did. What do we do?" Lucy thought for a long time. "We can't tell Mom. Not yet. What if there's an explanation? What if we're wrong?" "That lady kissed him, Lucy. That little girl called him Daddy." "I know," Lucy's voice cracked, "but if we tell Mom and we're wrong, we'll ruin everything. We have to be sure. We have to have proof." And so it began. They became spies in their own home. It started small, paying attention to their father's phone, noticing how he kept it face down, how he sometimes stepped outside to take calls. They listened at doors when they shouldn't. They watched when he thought they weren't looking. 2 weeks after the park, Lucy found Trevor's second phone. He'd been careless, left his car unlocked in the driveway. Lucy went out to get her forgotten sweater from the back seat and noticed the glove compartment was slightly open. Inside, tucked under the car manual, was a phone she'd never seen before. She grabbed it, her heart pounding, and ran to the backyard where Amber was playing. They hid behind the garden shed. The phone required a passcode. Lucy felt sick with disappointment until she remembered. She'd seen Dad typing a code on his regular phone 100 times. His birthday backward, 1207. She tried it. The phone unlocked. Messages filled the screen. Dozens of them. All to someone named V with a heart emoji. "Miss you already, honey. Can't wait to see you and the kids tomorrow. Chloe asked about you today. She loves her daddy so much. Noah took his first steps. Wish you could have been here." The girls read message after message, their world crumbling with each one. Lucy's hands shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. 8 years, Amber whispered, reading a message where the woman, Vanessa, said something about their 8-year anniversary. "Lucy, we're 8 years old." Lucy felt like she might throw up. Dad had been with this woman since before they were born. Maybe even before Mom got pregnant with them. They put the phone back exactly where they'd found it and ran to their room. They didn't speak. They just held each other and cried as quietly as they could. Over the next weeks, they developed a system. When Trevor left his laptop open, Lucy would search through his files. She found cloud storage filled with photos, birthday parties they'd never been to, Christmas mornings with a different family, zoo trips and park visits with those other children. Amber discovered bank statements in Dad's office showing payments to an address in Riverside. Thousands of dollars every month. They printed nothing yet. Saved nothing. They were just gathering information, trying to understand the scope of what their father had done. One night, 4 months before my birthday, Lucy found the emails to the lawyer. She didn't understand all the legal words, but she understood enough. Asset acquisition strategies. Property transfer before dissolution. Once the inheritance transfers, we proceed with the plan. Her father was planning to steal from their mother. She called Amber over to read it. When they finished, they looked at each other with a new understanding. This wasn't just about Dad having another family. He was going to take everything from Mom, grandmother's house, the buildings downtown, the money Grandpa Richard was going to leave her. "We have to stop him," Lucy said, her voice hard in a way that made her sound much older than 8. "How?" Amber asked. Lucy thought for a long moment. "We gather everything, every piece of evidence, and when the time is right, we make sure everyone sees who Dad really is. We make sure he can't lie his way out of it. When is the right time?" Lucy didn't know yet, but she would figure it out. They had to. Their mother's entire future depended on it. We return now to Giovanni's restaurant, to the moment the box fell and its contents scattered across the marble floor like evidence at a crime scene. I still couldn't move. My body had turned to stone. Around me, chaos erupted, voices shouting, people standing, chairs scraping. But it all sounded distant, like I was underwater. My father bent down and picked up a document. His face changed from confusion to absolute rage in the span of a heartbeat. "This is a quitclaim deed," he said, his voice shaking, "for Diane's grandmother's house, transferring sole ownership to Trevor Foster." He looked closer at the signature line, his hands trembling. "This has Diane's signature on it." "I never signed that," I heard myself say. My voice sounded strange, like it belonged to someone else. Nicole dropped to her knees, gathering papers in her lawyer hands. Even through her shock, her professional instincts kicked in. She scanned document after document, her face getting paler with each one. "Power of attorney," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Giving Trevor complete control over Diane's assets. Trust agreements putting all of Diane's properties into a trust with Trevor as sole trustee. Bank transfer authorizations." She looked up at Trevor, her eyes blazing. "These are all forgeries. You've been forging Diane's signature to steal her property." The words didn't make sense. Forgeries? Stealing? This was Trevor. My husband. The man who'd held me last night and told me I was beautiful. My mother made a horrible keening sound. Margaret had gone completely white, staring at her son like she'd never seen him before. "Let me explain," Trevor started, but Nicole cut him off. "Explain? Explain?" She held up more papers. "You were planning to transfer her grandmother's house into your name, her commercial properties, everything. And then what, Trevor? Sell it all and disappear?" Lucy stepped forward. My 8-year-old daughter, still so calm it was terrifying. She picked up the USB drive that had fallen from the box and handed it to the restaurant manager. "Can you play this on the TV screen, please?" Her voice didn't shake at all. The manager, caught in the nightmare unfolding in his restaurant, took the drive with shaking hands and plugged it into the system. The large screen on the wall flickered to life. Video footage began to play. Trevor, my Trevor, standing in a different house, a house I'd never seen, playing with the little boy, the one crying near Vanessa right now. "Come here, Noah. Daddy's gonna get you." Trevor's voice on the video, full of warmth and laughter. The date stamp in the corner showed 2 weeks ago, when he'd told me he was in Boston for a conference. More video clips played. Trevor helping the little girl Chloe with what looked like homework. Trevor reading bedtime stories. Trevor and Vanessa in a kitchen together, and I heard her voice clearly. "Honey, dinner's ready." "Coming, sweetheart," Trevor responded, kissing her cheek as he passed. My stomach lurched. I bent over, certain I was going to be sick. The video continued. Now Trevor and Vanessa were sitting at a table looking at papers together. Trevor's voice again. Once I get the property transfers finalised, we can sell that big Victorian. It'll go for at least $2 million, maybe more. With the commercial properties, we'll have enough to never worry about money again. Vanessa's face on screen looked concerned. But what about Diane? Won't she get half in the divorce? Trevor actually laughed. The sound of his laughter, so familiar and now so cruel, made me gasp. By the time she figures out what happened, the properties will be in my name legally. Her family's lawyer will see I'm the owner of record. She'll get whatever's left after I sell everything and pay off my debts, which won't be much. The room exploded. My father roared and lunged for Trevor. It took 3 men to hold him back. You were going to steal from my daughter? From your own children's mother? My mother was sobbing. Margaret stood up, her face twisted with disgust. You're my son, and I don't even know you. How could you? How could you? But Vanessa, the other woman, the one I should have hated, looked as destroyed as I felt. She was crying, clutching her children. You told me you were divorced, she screamed at Trevor. You showed me papers. You said your ex-wife was crazy, that she kept your daughters from you. You told me that house was from your family. Vanessa, I can explain, Trevor tried. You lied about everything for 8 years. Amber stepped forward now, holding printed documents high so everyone could see. When had my baby become so brave, so strong? He's been stealing money from Mum's business account, she announced, her voice clear and steady. $73,000 over 2 years. He told Mom the business was doing badly, but he was stealing from her to pay for his other family. Lucy moved beside her sister, a perfect unit. She held up more papers. And he took out a second mortgage on Mom's house, our grandmother's house, without telling her. He forged her signature, $400,000. My father grabbed those documents from Lucy's hands. As a real estate developer, he understood immediately what he was seeing. His face turned purple. You mortgaged my mother's house? Eleanor's house? Without Diane's knowledge? Where did that money go? Nicole demanded. She was already in lawyer mode, building a case in real time. Amber answered, and her voice finally cracked just a little. He bought the house in Riverside for Vanessa, cash purchase, $400,000. We have the property records. The revelation hit like a bomb. Trevor had used my inheritance, my grandmother's legacy, to buy a house for his mistress and their children. I felt something break inside me. Not my heart. Something deeper. Something fundamental about who I thought I was and what I thought my life had been. Trevor lurched toward the twins, his face twisted with rage. You little... He never finished. My father broke free from the men holding him and slammed Trevor against the wall. Nicole and 2 other men pulled them apart before my father could do real damage. Don't you dare touch those children, my father bellowed. They're the only ones in this room with any integrity. They saved their mother from you. Someone call the police, Nicole shouted. She was gathering all the documents, all the evidence, organizing it with practiced efficiency. This is fraud, forgery, theft, identity theft. I heard sirens in the distance. Someone had already called. Trevor was shouting now, trying to explain, trying to justify. His words washed over me meaninglessly. Something about loving both families, about not meaning to hurt anyone, about how complicated it all was. Vanessa slapped him. The sound cracked through the restaurant. I loved you, she sobbed. My children loved you. And you used us. You used stolen money to buy us a house with a forged mortgage. The police arrived. 2 officers, then 4, trying to make sense of the chaos. Nicole immediately took charge, showing them the forged documents, explaining about the fraud. These signatures are forged, she told them, showing Diane's real signature from her driver's license against the signatures on the property documents. He's been systematically stealing from his wife and planning to leave her penniless. One officer looked at the documents, then at Trevor. Sir, you need to come with us. We have some questions. This is ridiculous, Trevor shouted. Those are my properties too. We're married. They're not your properties, my father said coldly. They were never your properties. They're my daughter's inheritance, and you tried to steal them. They put handcuffs on Trevor. Actual handcuffs. I watched them click around his wrists and felt absolutely nothing. Numbness had taken over completely. As they led him toward the door, he looked back at me. Diane, please, let me explain. I love you. I've always loved you. The words meant nothing, less than nothing. The restaurant slowly emptied. People left in shocked silence or crying, or talking in hushed, horrified voices. Some stopped to hug me, but I couldn't feel their touch. Couldn't hear their words of support. Finally, only my parents, Nicole, Margaret, Vanessa, with her children and my twins remained. Lucy and Amber approached me slowly. They'd been so strong, so brave, but now tears streamed down both their faces. "We're sorry, Mom," Lucy whispered, her voice finally breaking. "We wanted to tell you, but we knew he'd lie. We knew if we told you in private, he'd have explanations for everything. We needed everyone to see the truth at the same time." Amber's whole body shook. "We couldn't let him steal Grandma's house. We couldn't let him take everything from you." I pulled them into my arms and finally, I cried. Deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere I didn't know existed. My daughters held me while I fell apart, while my perfect life shattered completely, while everything I thought I knew revealed itself as lies. "You saved me," I managed to say between sobs. "You saved us. You saved our home." We cried together on the floor of Giovanni's restaurant, surrounded by the ruins of my birthday party and my marriage, while my 8-year-old daughters proved themselves braver and stronger than any adult in that room. 3 months later, I woke up in my grandmother's house, my house, and for the first time since the birthday dinner, I didn't immediately want to cry. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the master bedroom, the same light that had woken me for years. But everything felt different now, lighter somehow despite all the pain. The air itself seemed clearer, like a suffocating blanket had been lifted. I got out of bed and walked to the window, looking out over the 3 acres of land that Trevor had tried to steal. The roses in Grandmother's garden were blooming, deep reds and soft pinks that she'd planted decades ago. They were still here. The house was still here. We were still here. The divorce had moved with surprising speed. When your husband is facing criminal charges for fraud, forgery, identity theft, and embezzlement, there's not much room for negotiation. Nicole had handled everything personally, refusing to accept any payment. "You're my best friend," she'd said firmly when I tried to insist. "And what he did to you. I need to make this right." Trevor was out on bail, living in a cheap motel on the edge of town. His real estate license had been revoked immediately. His business partners had dropped him the day after the birthday dinner. The video footage and forged documents made keeping him impossible. His reputation was destroyed so thoroughly that even people who'd never met him knew his name and his crimes. The criminal trial was scheduled for next month. His lawyer had tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the district attorney was pushing for prison time. The evidence was overwhelming. Lucy and Amber had documented everything so meticulously that there was no room for doubt. I walked downstairs to make coffee, trailing my hand along the wooden banister that Grandmother had touched thousands of times. Every step in this house felt like reclaiming something. This was mine. It had always been mine. Trevor's forged signatures on those property transfers had been invalidated immediately. The court had ordered him to sign documents removing his name from everything: the house, the commercial properties, even the bank accounts he'd wormed his way into. My father's investigation had uncovered even more horrifying details. Trevor hadn't just been planning to steal my property, he'd been planning to disappear. He had opened bank accounts in the Cayman Islands. He'd applied for passports for Vanessa and her children under slightly altered names. He was going to sell everything I owned, transfer the money offshore, and vanish with his second family, leaving me and the twins with nothing. Not even child support. The realization of how close I'd come to losing everything still made my hands shake sometimes. Lucy and Amber came downstairs together, still in their pajamas. They looked different too, older somehow, though only 3 months had passed. The weight they'd carried for 6 months had left its mark, but therapy was helping. Dr. Chen, their child psychologist, said they were remarkably resilient. "Morning, Mum," they said together, climbing onto the kitchen stools. "Pancakes?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Yes, please," Amber said, and this time her smile reached her eyes. We'd had to learn how to be a family of 3. Some days were harder than others. Amber still had nightmares sometimes, dreams where Trevor succeeded in taking the house, where they woke up homeless and broke. Lucy had become almost obsessively protective of me, always asking if I was okay, if I needed help with anything, checking the property records online weekly to make sure the house was still in my name only. But we were healing. Slowly, painfully, but genuinely. "Mom," Lucy asked as I poured batter onto the griddle, "are you sad that Dad won't be at my debate competition next week?" I considered the question carefully. Dr. Chen had emphasized the importance of honesty. No more pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. "I'm sad that your father chose to be the kind of man who won't be there," I said slowly. "I'm sad that he hurt us. But am I sad that he specifically won't be there?" "No, honey. I think we'll be okay without him." Lucy nodded, satisfied with this answer. Trevor was fighting for custody, but his chances were non-existent. The judge had been clear: unsupervised visitation with a man who'd traumatized his children by trying to rob their future was not going to happen. Trevor was allowed supervised visits twice a month at a family centre, but the girls had only gone once. They'd sat in silence for the entire hour while Trevor tried to explain, tried to apologize, tried to make them understand. On the drive home, Amber had said quietly, "He still thinks he can make us forgive him by talking enough." Lucy had added, "He doesn't understand that some things can't be fixed with words." My design business had not only survived, it had thrived. The scandal had brought attention, yes, but once people saw my work, they stayed for the quality. Several clients had returned, ashamed that they'd believed Trevor's lies about business struggles when he'd been stealing from me the whole time. I'd been featured in Maplewood magazine in an article titled "Rising Above: Diane Foster's Journey from Betrayal to Empowerment." I'd almost turned down the interview, but the twins had encouraged me. "Show everyone he didn't break us, Mom," Amber had said. The article had brought even more clients. I'd had to hire 2 additional designers to keep up with demand. One afternoon, about 6 weeks after the birthday dinner, I'd received an unexpected call. Vanessa. We'd met at a neutral coffee shop, both of us nervous, neither quite sure what to say. She'd aged in those 6 weeks, dark circles under her eyes, her hands shaking as she held her coffee cup. "I'm selling the house," she'd told me, her voice barely above a whisper. "The one in Riverside, the one he bought with—" She couldn't finish. "With my grandmother's legacy," I'd finished for her. She'd nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I can't keep it, Diane. I can't live there knowing it was bought with stolen money, with your inheritance. I'm selling it, and I'm giving you the money. All of it." I'd stared at her, stunned. "Vanessa, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do." Her voice was fierce. "I won't profit from what he did to you. I won't let my children grow up in a house built on lies and theft." The money had been transferred to my account 2 weeks ago. $400,000, the exact amount Trevor had stolen with the forged second mortgage. I'd used it to pay off that mortgage completely. Grandmother's house was now free and clear, owned solely by me, with no debt attached. Vanessa and I weren't friends. The pain was too fresh, the situation too complicated. But there was a mutual respect between us now. We'd both been victims of Trevor's elaborate con. She'd asked if someday, maybe years from now when everyone had healed, our children might be able to know each other, half-siblings after all. "Maybe," I'd said, "but not now, not yet." She'd understood. Margaret had surprised me too. Trevor's mother had shown up at my door 2 weeks after the dinner, her face grey with shame. She'd apologised, stiffly, awkwardly but genuinely, and asked if she could still see the twins. "They're my granddaughters," she'd said quietly. And I failed them. I failed to see who my son really was. I'd agreed to supervised visits. The girls deserved to know their grandmother, and Margaret was trying. She'd also quietly paid back the $73,000 Trevor had stolen from my business account. "It's my responsibility as his mother to make restitution," she'd said. My father had accelerated the transfer of his commercial real estate portfolio. "I was going to wait until I died," he'd told me over dinner one evening. "But I want to see you secure now. I want to know you're protected." Everything had been placed in an ironclad trust with me as the sole trustee. No spouse, no partner, no one else could ever access it. The trust documents were so carefully constructed that even if I remarried someday, though I couldn't imagine ever trusting someone that way again, my assets would remain solely mine. "This is yours and the girls," my father had said, "protected forever." Now, flipping pancakes in my grandmother's kitchen, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not happiness yet. That would take more time. But peace. My 33rd birthday was tomorrow. I'd considered skipping any celebration, the memories of last year too painful. But Lucy and Amber had insisted on doing something small. Just the 5 of us. Me, the twins, Nicole, and my parents. No restaurant, no crowd, just family. That evening after dinner, the twins presented me with a gift wrapped in silver paper. A deliberate choice, I realized. The same paper they'd used to wrap the box of evidence. "We're reclaiming silver paper," Lucy said with a small smile. "It's going to mean something good now." Inside was a scrapbook they'd made. The cover said, "Our real family and our real home," in Amber's careful handwriting. I opened it with shaking hands. The first pages showed recent photos, the 3 of us painting the living room a new colour, Lucy at her first debate competition with her trophy, Amber's artwork displayed at the school show, pizza nights at the kitchen table, walks through grandmother's garden. Real moments, honest moments. Mixed throughout were older photos too, genuine moments from before, when we hadn't known about Trevor's betrayal. The twins at their 3rd birthday party with me. A mother-daughter day at the zoo. Christmas morning with just the 3 of us opening stockings before Trevor woke up. The girls had carefully chosen photos where Trevor either wasn't present or could be cropped out, preserving the real memories while removing the lies. The last page had a letter written in both their handwriting, alternating sentences. "Dear Mom, Dad lied to all of us for 8 years. He tried to make us think we needed him to be a family. He tried to steal Grandma's house and everything Grandpa worked for. He wanted to leave us with nothing. But we stopped him. We protected you and our home and our future. And we learned something important. We don't need him. We never did. We're stronger now. We're honest now. We know what real love looks like. It looks like you working hard and taking care of us. It looks like Grandpa making sure we're secure. It looks like Grandma's house still standing strong. We're a real family, just the 3 of us. And that's not just enough. That's everything. We love you forever and ever. Lucy and Amber." I couldn't see the last lines through my tears. Good tears this time. Tears of gratitude and love and the overwhelming realization that these 2 8-year-old girls had saved not just my property but my entire future. "Thank you," I whispered, pulling them both into my arms. "Thank you for being so brave. Thank you for protecting us. We're a team," Lucy said firmly. "Forever." "Forever," Amber echoed. That night, I tucked them into bed in their room, the same room that had been mine when I visited Grandmother as a child. Lucy asked the question I knew was coming. "Mom, are you happy now?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. I wasn't where I'd expected to be at 33. I was a single mother, publicly betrayed, carrying the weight of a scandal that everyone in town knew about. My marriage had been exposed as a lie. My husband was facing prison time. But I was in Grandmother's house. My house, that no one could ever take from me. My commercial properties were secured in an unbreakable trust. My business was thriving. My daughters were healing. We had honesty now and safety, and a future that was truly ours. You know what, sweetheart, I said, smoothing Lucy's hair back from her forehead. I'm not happy about what happened. I'm not happy your father hurt us and tried to rob us, but right here, right now, with you and your sister, in our home that belongs to us forever? Yes, I'm happy. Because we have something your father never gave us, the truth. And truth, no matter how painful, is always better than a comfortable lie. Amber, already half asleep, murmured, "We protected you, Mom, just like you always protect us." My throat tightened with emotion. You did, baby, you absolutely did. You protected our family and our home and our future. I turned off the light and stood in the doorway for a long moment watching them sleep. 2 8-year-old girls who'd carried the weight of their father's crimes on their small shoulders for 6 months. 2 children who'd been brave enough to do what needed to be done to save their mother. I walked through the hallway, trailing my hand along walls that had stood for over 100 years. Grandmother's house. My house now. Lucy and Amber's house someday. A legacy that had almost been stolen but now stood stronger than ever. I looked out the window at the gardens below, at the 3 acres of land that Trevor had tried to claim. It was all still here. All still ours. The moon shone down on Grandmother's roses, and I could almost feel her presence, proud and protective. We'd survived. More than survived, we'd won. Not because we'd defeated Trevor, but because we'd discovered what really mattered. Truth, family, home. I climbed into bed in the master bedroom, in the house that was unquestionably, legally, permanently mine. For the first time in months, maybe in years, the constant anxiety was gone. I wasn't wondering where Trevor was or what he was planning. I wasn't worrying about hidden betrayals or secret schemes. I was free. We were all free. And we were safe. As I drifted off to sleep, my last thought was of my daughters' faces when they'd handed me that scrapbook, the pride in their eyes, the strength, the certainty that they'd done the right thing. They'd saved more than my property. They'd saved my ability to trust in real love, in honest relationships, in the possibility of a future built on truth instead of lies. Tomorrow was my 33rd birthday. A year ago, I'd been celebrating what I thought was a perfect life. Now I was celebrating something better, a real one. And that was enough. That was everything.